honest, I don't really care because I know you don't really either. So this is what we're doing. Talking about a few things. Biggest thing I wanted to talk about is the whole um, fallen Newman, California officer. But less want to go into it about him in particular because let's face it, danger's just part of the job. When you're a cop, you run the risk of getting killed. It happens. It sucks when it does. Um, my condolences to his family, but that's the job. But I want to not get much into that and get more into the response to it. And there's a lot going on about it, so we're gonna do that. Who are these two people on here? Oh, I got Raphael. Nice. I was talking to him about cool stuff. I got Darian. Um, so we're gonna get into this stuff real quick. So I figure once I get to 3, I'll start. So I have 2 now, but I'll start when I get to 3. So we are going to be talking about a few things. If I can move my giant head from the TV, we're going to be talking about the death of the cop, why California is more important than you think, and America's favorite asshole, Ben Shapiro, because of course we are. He's great. So let's get back. Let me get one more person on the start. Let's see if I can tag people. Maybe that'll get somebody over here. Nope, that's just face stuff. I'm gonna tag somebody. Oh god. Let's see. I'm gonna tag some of the people. Oh, I got 4. Nice. Okay. Cool. I got 4 folk. All right. Well, then, in that regard, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm so close to your face. I am hella close to my face right now. So much that you can't actually see the rest of the stuff. I would put it back, but then it will make me look really dark. And it's this whole thing I've been fiddling with basically all morning. Just ignore it. You're going to be close to my face. I apologize. But at least it's not a... I like to think I'm not a bad looking guy. So hopefully it's not a problem. Just some of these lights make it work. I'm trying not to be too dark. Well, hashtag melanin's fine, but I mean in this particular lighting. Because if I turn it away, then that happens, right? And that's just fucking scary. So let's keep it more or less neutral. There we go. Lovely brown skin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So want to go into a few things. The first thing I want to go into in particular is talking about the fallen Newman police officer. I'm in Newman, California now. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from Modesto, California, which it's Modesto series Newman, so it's literally 5 to 10 minutes down the road if you drive it right. And by drive it right, I mean like a Californian. But I want to talk about not just sort of the circumstances around his death, because we all know how that happened, but I want to talk about his killer, because let's face it, that's what everyone else is talking about. But are they talking about it in the right and responsible fashion? Spoiler alert, no they're not. Let's start with America's favorite TV network, Fox News. Big headline. Let me see if I can bring it up. Let me see if I can bring that behind me. Okay, let me do this. Wait, I don't want to just cast tabs. Cast to... There we go. So I'll cast my entire computer screen to it, so you all can see what I am seeing, hopefully. Cool. So this is the Fox News headline. If you can see it, you can't because it's backwards, but it basically says California illegal immigrant cop killer taken into custody, right? Sure, fine, all day, do it. But one, the proper term is undocumented. There's no such thing as illegal people. The very concept doesn't really make any sense. But additionally, if we're going into this, there has been over 65 slain officers in 2018. I'm looking at ODMP here, which is sort of a community police effort to make sure that the lives of fallen cops and stuff like that are memorialized. So it's a web page called Officer Down Memorial Page, and it's basically a page dedicated to fallen officers. Well, There's been over 65, well over 65 deaths here in 2018. Um, I mean, all of these people are cops who have been slain in line of duty just this year, right? But what makes this one particularly more important? Well, the person who killed this cop happened to be undocumented, and we all know what that. We all know sort of the result in that. The result of that in any given context, right? So Fox News jumped all over this. So let me read you. Fox News reports the illegal immigrant fugitive who was wanted in the murder of California police officer was taken into custody on Friday after being on the run for more than 2 days. According to an official who made the case that the fatal encounter may have been preventable. The suggested may have been preventable is obviously erring toward, hey, if we had stricter border control or stricter immigration laws, this wouldn't have happened. Let me tell you why that's axiomatically incorrect, why that's a wrong and dangerous statement. Reason one why it's a wrong statement is because the officers I showed you earlier, only 2 were killed by undocumented immigrants, which statistically speaking, you're apparently more likely to be killed by a literal born here blooded American than you are an undocumented immigrant. That's axiomatic, right? Obviously. But this feeds into a narrative, right? Because I looked on Fox News' website and could not find whatsoever, not any of these officers' deaths listed on their website, right? They didn't do a big story about them. It wasn't breaking news. It wasn't any of that stuff. So what made this one different? Well, the guy was undocumented. So let me tell you, as a person who grew up in California around literally millions of undocumented people, there's a little difference between undocumented people and documented people. At least at an elementary, middle, and high school level, they tend to more or less act the same. And it's weird. They tend to get quieter the older they get, but occasionally you do have some rogue ones, like this particular one here. Now, obviously, this guy's a monster, and I am not at all defending this person or what he did. You all know how I feel about the police. However, I don't wish death upon anyone because, well, that shit makes you an asshole. But there is a need to sort of place an emphasis on exactly how on 2 things about this, right? One, that this person was undocumented, but 2, that this guy was a cop, right? I don't need to tell you guys how many people have been killed by white, cisgendered, straight, full-blooded Americans, do I? We know Sandy Hook, Timothy McVeigh. I don't need to have this conversation with you guys. You already know exactly how many blonde-haired, blue-eyed, full-blooded Americans who were born here and vetted their entire lives cause the most mass damage, particularly in mass shootings or mass attacks and police killings. Americans do that, hands down, no questions asked. That's axiomatic. So I honestly, the reason why it is absolutely not important at all that this person was undocumented is because to suggest that if he were documented or if we had stronger borders, this wouldn't have happened is just wrong. It happens all the time. On that same token, a cop's job is to be placed in danger so other people don't have to, essentially. When police officers die, it sucks. It's really, really terrible. That's also kind of their job. That's why they wear bulletproof vests. That's why they have guns. That's why they run toward danger. It's what they do. That's their whole thing, right? Speaking as somewhat of a law enforcement professional myself, I can honestly tell you that if you're sure, as a police officer, your safety is important, but it is not paramount like a lot of people say. Others' safety is paramount, even if that means the cost of your own. It's part of the job. It's sort of why they pay you the big bucks and you get the best health care and all these other things. And pardon me if that was cold in any way, shape, or fashion, but it's just the honest truth. Cops are supposed to be put in danger. That's sort of why we have them, right? Again, being a cop isn't a mandatory job. You choose to do it. Seattle is suffering from a desperate police shortage, and that's just not a lot of people are willing to do that kind of work. So the ones who do are obviously brave. But what's ridiculous is the emphasis on the fact this person was undocumented, because given that we live in a universe or a reality where both undocumented and documented people can kill cops and do, and that documented people tend to kill more cops than undocumented people, the fact that this person was undocumented is dumb, stupid, crazy, irrelevant. It's not important whatsoever at all.com_. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't correlate to anything. it's just noise, right? So you'll hear a lot of people going around Facebook sharing this undocumented immigrant, illegal immigrant. Well, if this hadn't, please shut that down. Nothing would have prevented this. Maybe, arguably, gun control might have stricter gun control than, yes, even California has. When people talk about California's gun control, they seem to forget one thing, right? California has such restrictive gun control. You can't even have, a bazooka or whatever. California is still in the United States. So California can only restrict guns to the extent that the Supreme Court and the Constitution will allow it to. So when people complain about how is California still able to still have all these shootings despite the fact they have strict gun control, because by measurable standard, the gun control isn't strict by any measurable standard. I can, and I know plenty of people who have owned multiple legal weapons in California. My friend's dad was one of them. Literally, whole safe full of just weaponry that was legally owned in California. The state can only go so far when it comes to restricting things like guns. So I often tend to tell people that California does not have strict gun control. It has stricter gun control than Texas, but that's not saying much. It's like, that's like saying you're the smartest kid in an empty bus station. Cool, there's no one else really in here. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into about that. If you guys see anybody, sorry, I'm trying to charge my phone here because it's dying. You guys know I can never keep a phone charge. I hope that. I really do hope that works. Anyway, sorry, I'm back. Jesus, that was insane. So if you guys see that around Facebook or in conversations, remember, this has nothing to do with his immigration status. Nothing. Period. A person who wants to kill a cop will kill a cop will kill a cop. Happens all the time. Happens mostly by documented people. So it seems like the best way to have prevented a lot of cop killings would be to, I don't know, deport citizens. I have no idea. Anyway, so that's that. That's all I have for that piece. So reading on. Let's see what is next here. That was that. I don't really want to talk about California anymore. I've said the word a lot. Let's talk about America's favorite asshole, Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro recently just went on this massive, just emotion-driven rant about something that literally doesn't concern him whatsoever. Right? This is none of his business. But this is the problem with not just Ben Shapiro. This problem is indicative of something, and that something is religion, right? Ben Shapiro's religion is so ridiculous it requires him to wear a hat on a pretty consistent basis for absolutely no reason. The hat doesn't necessarily do anything. It doesn't say anything. It's just a hat. Sure, it means something to his imaginary friend, but it means nothing in reality in particular, right? So this is a guy who is constantly complaining about big government and overly controlling and thought crimes, and yet it's a person who believes in a God who does all of those things times 30. But that's aside from the point. Ben Shapiro is upset, and I will tell you why. One second. Let me see. I'm trying to find this, so bear with me. Okay. Yes. So Ben Shapiro, by the way, in case you don't know who Ben Shapiro is, he is the facts don't care about your feelings guy, right? He's the conservative pundit from Los Angeles, California. The irony is not lost upon me. One second. Gotta fix my mic here. How did you stack so much, bro? Jesus Christ. Alright. Hopefully that would be less annoying to me. I apologize. Hopefully that'd be less annoying to me. I apologize. Um, so the Daily Wire, which is a sort of network ran by Ben Shapiro. I think there are 3 or 4 radio shows on it, but NBC reports on a parenting trend with a name as stupid as the thing itself: babies. This is a designation certain upper class white liberal parents have given their children, whom they have decided to raise without gender labels. Now, Ben Shapiro, I don't know if you know him, but again, this is the facts don't care about your feelings, guys. So let me give you the full context of this emotion-driven crybaby story of his from the Daily Wire. Right? The NBC article focuses on Nate and Julia Sharp, parents of Zyler and Caden Sharp. The biological sex of Zyler and Caden Sharp has been hidden from everyone, including Zyler and Caden themselves. They were aware of their own body parts, but they have not been told what those body parts mean. One, I don't know if you know this, but the sex talk isn't something people have when they're babies. They just don't. I wasn't taught what my genitals meant until high school. Just weren't taught what they meant. Also, what genitals mean doesn't make any sense as a concept, but we'll go on. They do not know their own identity is incorrect. They don't know their own gender, which is fine. That's something they can pick later. I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about the difference between sex and gender, but there is a difference between sex and gender, but that's a conversation for another time. Half of you aren't stupid, and plus there's only 3 people on here who I'm assuming know me very well, so if you know me and we're still friends, it's for a reason. But he's very upset at these parents who have decided to raise their. Now I agree with him with one particular thing, is that the name babies is stupid because baby isn't a gendered name, but they want to think of a cute name for it, sure. However, Ben Shapiro is very in his feelings about what parents choose to do with their children, right? These are people who aren't harming anyone. They're just saying, hey, we want our kids to be able to pick their own gender. And this is the facts don't care about your feelings guy, right? The fact is they can do that, and there's no harm in it. In telling kid, hey, your sex is male or you have a penis or whatever, but do with that information what you want. There's no harm in doing that, right? But there's harm in it, and Ben Shapiro will tell you why. There's harm in it because Ben Shapiro is a goddamn crybaby. All of his arguments are literally just arguments. They're either appeals to emotions or arguments from personal incredulity. I don't know, therefore it's wrong, and I don't know. I don't know, therefore it's wrong, or this makes me angry, this should make you angry, therefore it's wrong kind of thing. Ben Shapiro is a garbage debater. But anyway, I'm going into things. Also, if you haven't told your children anything about boy and girl, then they haven't learned to associate those labels with anything in particular. Then what in the world does it mean for them to choose one? Isn't that like telling them to choose between gobbledygook and gookily gobble? Sorry. I didn't forget to mention, Ben Shapiro is very, very religious, so he gives words unnecessary amounts of power, so he does not say them. If you don't believe me, I'll try to attach a link somewhere, or go look up Ben Shapiro, where he talks about Beyonce's Ape Shit song. It's really funny because he reads the lyrics in these most mundane ways humanly possible, and it's absolutely asinine. But he's very upset that people are having babies and that people are doing things with their children that make him wildly uncomfortable. But one, Ben Shapiro, you do that kind of all the time. You do things that make people uncomfortable all the time, that constantly break down our sociological moral fabric. Ben Shapiro is Jewish. That religion is very intrusive. If you don't believe me, I was circumcised against my will because my mother circumcised me because it's cultural practice. That cultural practice came from Judeo-Christian values, and my family isn't even Jewish. So go fuck yourself. But I'll tell you what, when having genderless babies becomes as harmful or becomes as intrusive as literally snipping the heads off babies' penises because fuck it, we can, then you can be upset about it, right? Then you can have sort of an emotional tie to it and begin to cry about it and bitch about it and piss and moan about it, right? When we get to a point where they are literally snipping off babies' genders or parts of anatomy when they're older or when they're babies because their imaginary friends told them to, then we have a problem, right? But let's not talk about the things that might sexually confuse children, right? Because this is a guy who again feels the need to cut off to circumcise babies for literally no reason other than his imaginary friend told him to. he tends to be very emotionally driven by things that upset him. And I wouldn't mind this. Hey man, you have feelings, man. Feel your feelings. There's nothing wrong with them. I cry. I have feelings all the time. I piss and moan all the time about everything. But I also don't. I also tell people about it because fuck it, I can and I want to. However, if your mantra is going to be facts don't care about your feelings, maybe come with some truly objective, secular reasons why something is wrong instead of just, this makes me feel bad and I'm sad about it, so I'm going to make you try to feel bad about it and sad about it. Stop. Ben Shapiro is a literal joke. Um, this article goes on and on too about just him bitching about everything in the world. Um, sorry, I didn't get to this part, right? You could have child protective services knocking on your door, especially in low-income neighborhoods, if you so much as spank your child. Yet these people are turning their kids into social experiments, hiding essential biological truths from them, depriving them of identity, force-feeding them leftist gender theories, and fostering mental disorders in their minds. And rather than a visit from CPS, they get a profile on NBC. It's unthinkable, gross, and evil. He says, literally cutting off the skins of baby penises for absolutely no reason. You want to talk about someone who should have their children taken away? There are people who literally tell their kids about the concept of hell, right? You want to talk about something psychologically damaging. There are people who tell their kids about the concept of hell, and regardless of what your nice, very soft, sweet Christian friend might tell you, the biblical perception of hell is not mere separation from God. It's not, I'll just live away from God and turn. No, it's a place that is awful. It's eternal torture, which one I find to be wildly immoral because finite I find the concept of hell to be wildly immoral because there should be no such thing as as an infinite punishment for a finite crime. Um, and Ben Shapiro, he's Jewish, so he doesn't particularly believe that, but he does believe in a whole slew of other nonsense, right? This is a guy who's going to sexually repress his children. If you think hiding things like, or not necessarily hiding, but sort of omitting things about specific gender roles is harmful. Wait until his, possibly gay son realizes he's a homosexual, and only to have that repressed both religiously and sociologically by his absolutely sexless appearing parents. You want to talk about some biological truths? People are gay biologically. And no amounts of prayer or funny hats is going to do anything about that, right? You want to talk about spanking your children. Your religion calls on an old guy to straight drown your kids when they're born. They take them out of the womb and just dunk them in the tub for no logical reason. I will show you videos of some violent baptisms, but we'll go on. He also makes a suggestion that people should have their children taken away. I don't believe that religious people should have their children taken away, but if we're going to go on the grounds of simply things that might confuse or make your child uncomfortable, let's get into religion really quickly. Ben Shapiro, again, is a devout Jew. The religion calls him to wear a ridiculous, pointless, tiny hat on the top of his head. I'm sure he's going to make his children do it. They will be laughed at, they will be this, they will be that. Someone should take his children away. I don't truly think that, but if we're going by Ben Shapiro logic, anything that doesn't make sense to you and is potentially harmful to children in any possible way should result in the government coming to take your child away. If that's the case, Ben Shapiro should never be allowed to reproduce anywhere for any time, any reason whatsoever. Social experiments. You're a Jew in Los Angeles. The biggest social experiment ever. like you want to talk about making your kids undergo social experiments? They have to eat special kinds of meat because God said so. They have to live in places and have specially baked bread because God said so. Let's not talk about social experiments because Judeo-Christian values are the largest social experiment ever, and they fail at literally every turn. Do not ever let somebody who's religious tell you that we get our best laws and values and moral standard from Judeo-Christian values, because that is a lie on ice. We actually get our worst. We had our worst laws and moral values from the Judeo-Christian principles. Things like sexism, women for ownership, slavery, all of those things came from the Bible. Secular morality is actually what changed that. Atheistic morality is what changed that. The concept that humans are all born equal, regardless of what they have between their legs, is not a biblical standard. That's a secular standard. That came from nowhere in the Bible. God said himself that he had Adam dominion over everything, and God really hates women, by the way. He's just not a fan of them. At every turn, there's a woman who's being maniacal and deviant. But we got our best. We got our very best laws from secularism. The concept that people are equal based on their tribe, or the people are equal regardless of their tribe and stuff. That's a secular ideology, right? Even in some of the good things that you argue that are religious, the community, the charity, not only can all those things exist without religion, they totally do exist without religion, and those things did not come from religion. To suggest that people are like, oh well, how do you not murder if we didn't have religion? Fun fact, people were already not murdering before Jesus and God came along, and we recognized a long time ago that it was a good thing. We knew, right? I have a cousin who has a biblical name. His name is Matthew, and he's also a very unapologetic atheist too. And when asked about his name, he's like, well, you have a biblical name. He's like, fun fact, there were people named Matthew before God started naming people Matthew. That is not a biblical name. See, the Bible, religion does a lot of things. One of the biggest things that it does is anything that exists in the world that is secular, it will take it and make it religious. Do you like heavy metal rock music? Cool. There's a Christian version of that. Do you like mints? Cool. There's a Christian version of that. Do you like R&B music? Cool. There's a Christian Bible version of that. Everything the church does, it copied from things humans just do naturally. Congregation, everyone sitting into a room listening to one person talk. People do that all the time. It's something we've done, anthropologically speaking, since the dawn of time, or since the dawn of, humans at least. This whole ceremoniously telling stories and passing down traditions, religion didn't invent that. Secularism invented that, and then religion took it and made it Christian. They do that with absolutely everything. So when someone tells you that we got our best morals from religion, there's just axiomatically incorrect. There's nothing that humans can't do with religion that it does without religion that it does with religion. Period. From the charity to the community to the support to the feeling of importance, integrity. None of that stuff is exclusive to religion. And in fact, religion inhibits a lot of it. For example, this man happens to believe that this life here is just a step stool, right? Nothing in this life is really important because he's trying to get to a bigger goal, right? This is a floor mat. This is a stepping stone compared to what's going to happen. So why treat this life like anything? I can hate homosexuals and tell people how to live their life and force women to have babies if they don't want to, and force pregnancy on anyone I feel like because my imaginary friend told me that abortion was wrong. I can do all of these things because I'm worried about me, right? I need to get to this fun, magical place. This place here is just nonsense full of a bunch of assholes. As an atheist, secular reality says that's not true. You build here, you grow relationships, you meet people, you have friends, you dance, you love, you cry, you develop, you educate, and we take those things very seriously because secular morality suggests that this is the only shot we got. And even if you don't believe this is the only life we got, I have no reason to worry about the next one because I had no reason to worry about the previous one. I don't sit here wondering and making myself upset about how terrible Darren Lewis was in a previous life. I apparently have no recollection of it. So if there is a next life, I will have no recollection of this one. It won't faze me even a tiny bit. The War and Peace show won't be a thing. This won't be a thing. I won't remember it. I won't be upset that it's no longer a thing. I'll have no recollection of it because that's how this one happened. But I don't think that's the case. So to me, this is the only life that I can possibly have, that I will have. So this one is important to me, right? Whether heaven or hell, at least is prescribed in the Bible to a certain extent, is totally up to me. I can make my life heaven or I can make my life hell. Ben Shapiro has chosen to wear a series of funny little hats and condemn people who make him slightly uncomfortable and lie about science, biology, and reality and spew his emotions on people he doesn't understand because he's Ben Shapiro while remaining the world's largest hypocrite as a conservative who hates liberals yet lives in Los Angeles in a place controlled by Democrat on Democrat on Democrat on Democrat. He makes his personal world hell. All the things that he bitches about on the Daily Wire, all the things that he bitches about on any of his platforms, they're only problems because he forces them to be problems with his overly emotion to brown people, women, gay people, disabled people, and people who aren't cisgendered, straight, white, Christian dudes miserable. He makes his own life hell, and he has no one to blame for that but himself. I'm Darren Lewis. This has been the War and Peace Show. I'm at 5,000. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good shit. If any of you like recorded the screen, that would be crazy useful because I forgot to like a fucking idiot. But 2019, I'm going to be going live hopefully at least once a week. I'll be putting these videos on YouTube finally because I don't go to YouTube because I don't have a high following on YouTube, but I don't have a high following because I don't put anything on YouTube. So I'm going to start putting stuff on YouTube. I'm gonna have to start asking at least some of you to screen record this because that would be wonderful. Thank you. It's called Feminist. I appreciate it. I love that too. I wonder if I got any comments. It's Spotto said 100%. I didn't get very many comments, but hopefully I got a decent amount of views. But I'm gonna wrap up here because I have other stuff to do. And I don't know. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, man. Don't drink this anti-immigration, this Ben Shapiro. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, man. Live your own fucking life. I'm gonna go get stoned. Bye.